Well, the World Series is knotted up in one game apiece. Penn State gets set for a whiteout this Saturday. And the Penguins show why they certainly have some class. Welcome into Thursday Night Sports Talk. Hi, this is Steve Austin. We'll be here. That's Greg Banks, Steve Austin. You know who I am. We'll be here until 8 o'clock. And kind of befuddled this evening because we're trying to make a little connection. I just lost somebody for a second. But hang in there, guys. We'll get you on. It is Thursday Night Sports Talk. Greg Banks in the studio. Dave Shannon, by the way, in Altoona. And Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown tonight. Unfortunately, guys, Chad can't join us. He had a business dinner. And that's probably more important.
Whoa.
Yeah, he's got to get some points with his boss now. Come on. You know, we got to excuse him. We'll excuse him this time. But, hey, we certainly missed you, Chad. So we'll see you hopefully next week. Hey, Dave, what's been happening in your life, man, these days? I saw where you had caught a big fish up there in Erie. That was a couple weeks ago on Facebook.
Yeah, that's it's that time of year. The lake run fish, as they are referred to, they are steelhead trout, which are actually native to the West Coast, and they have been planted in the Great Lakes, Lake Erie in particular. There used to be a time when Pennsylvania had a run of salmon, in particular coho salmon, that would come up, and it was an unreliable thing, and the fish would die after they're 4 years old. Steelhead will live to be as much as 8 years old, and will continue to come back year after year to try to spawn. The only problem is when they get to that, older age, their bodies are so big they don't run very far up the streams because they don't like their they get so big because of the reproductive things going on inside them that their bodies will drag. Their bellies drag on the bottom of the streams. Yeah. And so they don't go very far. But it is just a hoot. It is amazing when the fish do arrive in numbers. And you can have just a really nice day of fishing if you enjoy catching big fish. And, hey, who doesn't? Who doesn't?
I certainly would like to catch the one that you caught. I hope you throw it back. That way I might someday make a visit to Erie and catch it on my own.
Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy.
I put them all back.
All right, Jimmy, you've been playing some basketball. Where you been? What are you playing? Like pickup games there at East Hills Rec, or what are you doing?
Yeah, I play pickup basketball at East Hills Rec Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at noontime with a bunch of guys. It's a very competitive league. We really get into it, but at the end of the day, we all shake hands and we all talk about life, and so it's pretty fun to play up there.
Oh, that's great. So I hope you're having some fun. It also keeps you in shape, by the way.
Yeah, so it does. Because I have to keep up with a 4-year-old.
Oh, that's right. You better have some energy, buddy. You better have some energy. Lots of it. Hey, Thursday Night Sports Talk. Again, Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon in Altoona, and Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. Well, Dave, here it is. Soon to be Game 3 of the World Series. And, of course, for all intents and purposes, Bumgardner did exactly what we thought he might do on Tuesday evening as they opened up the series, the Giants blasting the Royals. I believe that game was 7-1.
Yes.
And then to last night, the Royals, well, that was kind of nice, came back to defeat the Giants 7-2. Anything that kind of stuck out in your mind watching those two games? And when is the next time Bumgardner is up in that rotation?
I think they'll, try to give him as much rest as they possibly can. Typically in a World Series situation, it can be a three-game rotation, in times off. It just depends. I would venture a guess they're going to hold him. They have to feel good getting back to San Francisco with a split there in Kansas City and the potential to win the World Series at AT&T Park in San Francisco. And that would be, I would think that they will probably hold.
You think maybe Game 5, Game 6?
Yeah. That I look for him back in Game 5. At this particular point. Now, if something would dramatically change, if the Royals would win the first two in San Francisco, then that's going to be a little bit. Well, it would still
be Game 5.
Yeah, so I'm saying Game 5 one way or the other.
Yeah, Jimmy, your assessment of the World Series thus far. I mean, the first night looked like a downright blowout with Bumgardner on the mound. Last night, a little bit different story, but nonetheless, a big win for the Kansas City Royals. Your thoughts?
Yeah, the Game 1, San Francisco just came out hot. The first batter, Gregory Polanco, or with that single, and then Sandoval with another single, and then Pence with that home run. The first inning, Giants were up 3-0.
Oh, yeah, how about that?
And the Royals couldn't catch up, even though they had momentum in Kansas City. The fans, Bumgarner was just amazing. He came into that game with a 0.00 ERA throughout the playoffs.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt.
So Bumgarner's just dominating. And like Dave said, if the Royals win against Hudson in Game 3 and they win again, I can see Bumgarner coming back by Game 5.
By Game 5. Well, let's get an update on what's happening here with this report.
Yes, we have a World Series. Kansas City Royals made sure of that on Wednesday night, winning 7-2 over the San Francisco Giants. They scored 5 runs off 5 Giant pitchers in the 6th inning to blow the game wide open. And then once again, their bullpen shut the door, pitching 3 2/3 scoreless innings, giving up 1 hit. The series now travels to San Francisco. Next 3 games at AT&T Park.
The Royals got contributions up and down their lineup, as they'll do. But their real hero was second baseman Omar Infante, who doubled and scored in the 2nd, and then delivered the death blow with a 2-run home run to cap that rally in the 6th inning. Royals reliever Kelvin Herrera, coming off a long layoff, entered the game and threw 14 pitches over 100 miles an hour in 1 2/3 innings of scoreless work.
Now the series travels to San Francisco, where the Giants have the advantage. They're playing at AT&T Park, where there will be no DH. So Billy Butler will be sitting out at least games 3 and 4. We'll see if he plays first base in Game 5, but no DH in National League parks. This is the reason since 2006, National League teams have dominated, winning 15 of 21 games played at their ballpark. The Royals will have to get by without Butler, a key bat they'll be missing.
For the Royals, starter Jeremy Guthrie will pitch for the first time in 10 days after a solid but unspectacular outing in the ALCS. For the Giants, veteran starter Tim Hudson will be on the mound. Hudson struggled late in the season, but manager Bruce Bochy said on Wednesday that he was dealing with a hip injury that settled down once he got some rest in the postseason. Hudson's been pretty good in the playoffs, with a strong outing in the NLDS and a solid one in the NLCS.
That report, by the way, from USA Today, we appreciate it, guys. Dave, do you think maybe with Billy Butler being the DH, if you were Ned Yost, would you start him in even Game 3 and 4 and just put him on first base because you need his bat?
No, because I like Eric Hosmer. Eric Hosmer at first base. I like the way that infield works. Moustakas at the other corner. I don't think you want to interrupt that, at any cost. And as I say, what you saw in the first game of the World Series is, Chad and I have talked about this a couple of times, and Jimmy, you haven't always been on for the baseball talk that we've had, but it was the case of good pitching will stop good hitting. And right now, Madison Bumgarner is just on fire. And I would continue with the lineup that got you there in the case of Ned Yost. And that includes Hosmer at first and then Moustakas at third. So I think that's, I don't see a loss there. I mean, by the same token, you could talk about it takes Michael Morse out of the lineup.
Yeah.
By the way, what a frickin' beast that man is.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
doubt.
he looks like he could play. He could be a tight end, a linebacker in pro football.
Hey, wasn't he the guy that slammed that first homer last night? I mean, in last night's game, was that him that did that, or was that somebody else I'm thinking about in that game?
Gregor Blanco. Gregor Blanco got that first one in the opening night.
He is massive, though. That dude would be made. He'd be made. You know, the Steelers could definitely use that guy. There's no doubt about it. Yeah,
no doubt.
Hey, wanted to mention that Game 3 is coming up at AT&T Park tomorrow in San Francisco. Now, the matchup is of 2 veteran pitchers, 39-year-old Tim Hudson for the Giants and Jeremy Guthrie, 35 for the Royals. How do you see that matchup working out, Jimmy, and who do you give that game to?
Well, if Guthrie can get by with 5 innings, I'm going to give it to the Royals because the Royals' bullpen is phenomenal. But Hudson, I can see Hudson dominating because he is a veteran, but Hudson could have the nerves. This is his very first World Series. He ever pitched it. But I just say the Royals, that they have too much speed on the bases, and they're going to get them early runs.
Yeah, what do you think about that, Dave? Now, will the Giants regroup as they get back to their home turf, as it were?
I think, it's going to be, and here's one thing about the home field advantage. I think that the Royals now have been really, talk about being battle tested, and they know the key to success to winning on the road is getting out to a lead and quieting the fans as quickly as possible. And as Jimmy pointed out, they really do take advantage of their speed at all times. And I'll tell you what, it plays out. How about in the field, too? That speed plays out in the field. I've seen some outstanding catches by everyone in the outfield and the infield players as well. They can cover so much ground. So I look for that speed. They will take advantage of that as soon as possible. And if anybody gets on in the first inning, it's go-go time for the Kansas City Royals. So I look for the Royals to actually, I like Jimmy's theory there, too. If you can get 5, then you get into that bullpen. And Kelvin Herrera, last night, they had mentioned that there in the report that you played, was having, I'll tell you what, he almost blew up in the 7th. But he's a young guy, too. You have to remember that.
Yeah.
And boy, did he grow just a heck of a lot last night, where after walking 2 batters and falling behind suddenly, he just got it back. The pitching coach came out, had a little bit of a chat with him, and that got things right back in order. And that'll pay in spades for Kansas City.
Well, both squads have a catcher on their squads who I must say are certainly leaders when you look at Posey and, of course, the Royals catcher as well. Now, the loss to the Royals snapped an 8-game World Series winning streak for the Giants dating back to Game 4 in 2010. And with that series now knotted up at 1 apiece, guys, they say that Game 3 has usually gone on to win the title for 66% of the team. So saying that if you win Game 3, your likelihood is better to win the series. You believe that, Jimmy?
No, not really. I just look at it like speed kills on the bases, and if Kansas City, like I said earlier, if Kansas City can get them early runs, they're going to win. But if San Francisco can launch that ball and their starting pitching dominates, I really don't know, Greg.
Yeah. And we have seen a lot of speed though on the base paths, man. Last night there was a hit, if you remember, and somebody's got to turn their speakers down. But last night there was somebody on base, and I think they were at second, and they rounded third, and the guy was incredible. I wish I could have clocked him. He looked like he was a track star, man. He was.
Lorenzo Cain.
Woo, was he flying?
It was on a Billy Butler hit.
Yeah, it was. Hey, Dave, I wanted to mention that Tim Lincecum was stiffened up in that game back in, I think, in the 9th, and he left the game. And then I'm getting reports now that he may exit the World Series altogether now because of an injury. Have you heard any updates on that?
I know he's just been struggling a lot, and they talked about how he felt. They said that he had some kind of they thought virus in the opening night, because there was some talk that Bruce Bochy might bring him into the opening night game.
Yeah, Jimmy had mentioned that off air, yeah.
Yeah, and they did not, and so they got him warmed up and everything. But this has been a rough season for the young man.
Oh, no
and
doubt.
He does have the one thing I will say about him, that's a high-maintenance pitching style that he has.
Yeah.
And it's maybe come back to haunt him. He may have to think, we all do certain things when we're younger that when we get older, if we play a sport, that we're not going to be able to continue to do just because the body says no.
Well, sort of like Troy when he jumps the line. We'll talk about that later, too. Sometimes you hit, sometimes you miss. Jimmy, do you have a feeling as valuable as Lincecum was to the Giants, maybe 4 years ago, Cy Young winner, that his days are numbered now?
Yeah, I think his days are numbered. He was sick Game 1. He had a terrible 2014 year pitching-wise. Pitchers can only go so long. There's not too many Nolan Ryans out there anymore.
Yeah, ain't a lot of guys go beyond 4 or 5 innings anymore either. You notice that?
Yeah,
I'll tell you what, though, you may see I was going to say, you may see in Madison Bumgarner a potential new Nolan Ryan, because Madison is, I was talking about how big Michael Morse is.
Yeah.
And, geez, Madison Bumgarner is a
he's
huge
got some
guy,
size.
too.
Yeah, he's got some size. Every time we talk on this show, Dave, and you and Chad sometimes mention these pitchers and the longevity in the league like Nolan Ryan, it makes me think back to when the Pirates had Tim Wakefield, remember? And we thought that his whole career was over whenever he got the hook, and he ended up in Boston for all those years. So, like you said, you have to change your form, and obviously Linskin's going to have to do that as well in order to stay in this league.
Oh, the fewer moving parts you have, Greg, the better off you are. And Nolan Ryan wrote a book after he got out of the major leagues and explained basically why his career was so long. He said, learn to pitch with your legs.
The legs, yeah.
And that is what will propel your career a lot farther than if you're trying to do so much with your arm and you cut down on the amount of movement you have in your delivery. And that will pretty much ensure you a nice long career. And unfortunately, a lot of young guys don't do that. And, there's a lot of, and I don't blame the major league coaches. When you get a young guy that comes up and he's got that new and weird delivery, and it's really nice.
Unorthodox.
They win a lot of games early on, and I think that the pitching coaches at the major league level are reluctant to do anything with them because they're successful. And once you start to tinker
you can't change
with mechanics,
right,
then you're going to get into a problem. They are not going to be able to do what they used to do, and that's why I think the major league pitching coaches leave them where they are. And, I think that was the case with Lincecum, and now it's up to him.
Yeah.
If he wants to continue to be a viable pitcher in Major League Baseball, he is going to have to change the way he throws the baseball and try to limit the amount of wear and tear that he puts on his body.
Well, the World Series is tied up. Game 3, 4, and 5 now, moving to AT&T Park, beginning tomorrow in San Francisco. We've got Dave Shannon in Altoona, Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown, and yours truly, Greg Banks, in the studio on Thursday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net live. By the way, you can hear a rebroadcast of this show coming up tomorrow at 4 p.m. here on the airnetwork.net. Yet to come, fantasy football, the Steelers, in addition to Pitt, Penn State, and a whole lot more. Stick around. That's coming up next.
I can help the next customer over here.
Oh, thank you.
Wow, that's a lot of books. Let's see. How to keep your child safe. Child-proofing your home. Child-proofing your yard. Child-proofing your in-laws' home and yard. Well, I'm guessing you have a little one at home?
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you must take good care of her.
Oh, thank you.
Now, let's see. Parent's Guide to Safe Toys. That's a really good one. Parent's Guide to Safe Foods. Parent's Guide to Safe Safety Products. Parent's Guide to Parenting Guides. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and other safety tips.
Of all the things you can read about keeping your child safe, the most important is attached to the back of their car seat. Read the instruction manual and learn to use the latch system. It makes it easier to be sure your child's car seat is installed correctly.
Parent's Guide to Telling Other Parents How to Raise Their Kids.
To learn more, go to safercar.gov.
Confessions
Anchor,
of
tether,
a potentially
latch,
perfect
the
parent,
next
brought to you by
generation of
adoptuskids.org.
I might look like an adult, like a person who could possibly be a parent, but I have no idea how to talk like one. And everyone knows that if you want to be a parent, you have to sound good when you say things like, "Don't make me turn this car around," or "Because I said so," or "Don't make me come back there." I don't even really know what those things mean, but I know that I actually believed my parents when they said them to me. How did they manage to sound so convincing? Here we go. "Don't make me come back there." Ugh, no, that's not tough enough at all. Kids can sense weakness. "Don't make me come back there." Ooh, yeah, that's better. In fact, that kind of sounded like my dad. Weird.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who would love to listen to you practice your dad voice. Call 1-888-200-4005 or visit adoptuskids.org for more information.
It's Thursday Night Sports Talk here on the airnetwork.net. Greg Banks in the studio, along with Dave Shannon in Altoona and Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. We're missing our good buddy Chad States tonight, who is away on a business dinner tonight. And so we miss you, Chad. Hope that you'll join us again next Thursday night. Hey, we're talking about football. baseball, hockey. Oh, man, we'll talk about all kinds of stuff tonight. But next up, we've got the fantasy football guy in the house from Johnstown, Jimmy Tighe. And I just wanted to run this by you, Jimmy, because the Chargers and the Broncos go at it this evening in Thursday night football action. And I had a chance to get a report from a guy who works with the NFL network. And let's see if I can find it here. His name is Michael Fabriani. Okay, Michael Fabriani has a look at the shakers and movers on the fantasy football front for tonight's game. And so we'll hear from him, Jimmy. Then I'll get some thoughts on what's happening in your league, perhaps in fantasy football this week. So here we go with that report.
Michael Fabiano from NFL Fantasy Live here with your Denver Broncos fantasy preview for Week 8 as they take on their divisional rivals, the San Diego Chargers. I'm not going to bore you with Peyton Manning. We know to start him. Let's talk about Emmanuel Sanders, who's been one of the big breakout guys in fantasy football this season. Right now, Sanders, 514 yards, 1 touchdown, ranks 22nd among wide receivers, but I think that trend is going to rise. He's on pace for over 100 catches and over 1,300 yards. The Chargers have allowed the 7th most fantasy points to wide receivers in the last 2 weeks. Guys, Emmanuel Sanders has become a must-start in both standard and PPR leagues. Let's move on to the running back position, and Ronnie Hillman. I really liked Monte Ball to come into the season, but Hillman has been the better back. 100-plus scrimmage yards in 2 straight games, and he did it against the Jets and 49ers, who have really good run defenses, so he's been impressive. 4th in fantasy points among running backs in his last 2 games. This matchup isn't great, but I'm still starting Hillman as a flex starter on Thursday Night Football. And finally, Julius Thomas. He only had 2.5 fantasy points last week. Is the world ending? Did hell freeze over?
Julius
no,
who?
He's still having one of the best seasons of any tight end in the history of the National Football League. Still on pace for 24 catches. Now, the Chargers have been tough on tight ends, allowing the second fewest fantasy points to the position. But, guys, it doesn't matter. Julius Thomas, it's just that easy. Start him in Week 8 and every week moving forward. Make sure to join CBS and NFL Network for Thursday Night Football. Phillip Rivers and the Chargers travel to Denver to take on Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos. NFL Total Access kickoff starts at 6 p.m. on NFL Network. Coverage continues at 7:30 on CBS and NFL Network. Football starts here.
Well, obviously, I had to let him get that gratuitous plug in there, Dave. Otherwise, they wouldn't let me use this
nice
stuff.
Of you.
Yeah. Anyhow, thank
we
you.
have such reach. You know.
Yeah, that's true. So, Jimmy, as Mike's going over his picks, and of course for Week 8, who do you see some of the starters and sleepers from, well, tonight's game? The Broncos, and who do we have? The Chargers tonight. Do you agree with those guys?
I agree with them, but the one guy I would he never talked about the Chargers.
No, he didn't.
Right.
He really didn't.
So if you want to play a Charger player, of course we know Antonio Gates.
Yeah.
You know Phillip Rivers. That's like a combo connection right there. But the one player that nobody knows of up there in San Diego or in NFL is Brandon Oliver, a rookie free agent from the University of Buffalo, is now the starting running back.
Oh, okay. So that's and he's playing for the Chargers this evening.
For the Chargers, yeah.
All right.
For the Chargers. For the Broncos, if you're playing Ross Welker, I would put him on your bench.
Yeah.
There's way too many targets. You have Sanders. You have the 2 Thomas boys, Demaryius and Julius Thomas. That Peyton throws to you. You have Ronnie Hillman, who runs the ball. If you have Wes Welker, you should bench him on your bench this week.
You think? Okay. All right.
Yes.
Hey, but Peyton Manning makes everybody look good. Every week there's a different star that emerges from that Broncos squad. Would you agree, Dave? I mean, as I've watched this guy just create magic, and, they played earlier. Well, this is a short week for these guys. What do you think about tonight's matchup between the Chargers and Broncos, Dave?
It is really tough to bet against the Broncos at any particular time. I think they have amazingly moved from one season to the next. They kind of remind me of the old glory years of the Steelers in a different way, but in the fact that year to year they can carry, especially since once they got Peyton Manning, that was the key. It was I kind of felt bad at the time for
the Colts.
For the quarterback.
For the Broncos quarterback at that time, and I'm trying to remember his name.
Tim Tebow.
Tim Tebow, who's faded into oblivion now.
Well, I don't feel that bad. Come on, he's got a job doing something.
Well,
SEC Network.
Yeah, he's working for them. But the bottom line is you could have looked, and I did from the outside when they beat the Steelers on a pass by Tebow in overtime, and I looked at it and I thought, this kid has a pedigree, coming out of Florida and everything. And as it turned out, that wasn't the case, and I was just kind of scratching various and assorted sundry body parts when John Elway said he's no quarterback, and it was like, what do you mean? He just won a game in overtime for you. He can run the ball, and
but how soon
he saw what I did not see, and that's the difference about being around a team on a daily basis.
But how soon we forget? Because you know what? Yes, he had a prolific game against the Steelers as a Bronco. But can any of you recall who he replaced as quarterback? Jimmy, do you remember who he replaced as quarterback for Denver at that time?
Wasn't it?
You're
it
thinking.
It was either Cal Orton or Jay Cutler.
Yeah, well, I think it was Orton, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was Orton at that time.
Orton,
it was Orton.
Yeah.
So, so we quickly forget when Manning moves in there and he works the magic that he does. And in fact, he's breaking almost every record out there now. I understand he broke Brett Favre's passing record or something.
Yes.
So this guy's going to be around maybe another 2-3 years, just basically demolishing every record there is. And he's the only guy that I have watched over the last decade or longer who, in the last minute, if they're trailing and he's within the 50-yard line, I'm not going to give up on him because you never know. He might just pull it out of the hat, just like Elway used to do, back in the day, man. It's
depends
incredible.
on the defense. It depends on the defense a lot, too, Greg. I mean, I've seen Peyton have some really bad games simply because the defensive coordinator was able to get inside the head of Peyton Manning and had the personnel to do what they needed to do. Because if you have good, speedy backs that can cover the receivers, you can create a big problem for the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning, because the game for the Broncos is so much built on passing that if you can take that away in any way, shape, or form, good coverage in any way, you can beat the Broncos. But to this point, they haven't been up against a defense that can do that.
And you got to remember also when he first got there, and Jimmy's right though, Seattle.
What's going on with Seattle now, though?
What's going on with them now? If you look at the Super Bowl, everybody was saying, "Oh, Peyton Manning's going to do this to Seattle," that. But what Seattle did, and what New England used to do, was pressure Peyton Manning.
Right.
When you pressure Manning, he rushes his throws, he makes bad throws, and he gets them intercepted. When he stands back there, like any quarterback, even if I would stand back there and throw the ball, you can just pick apart. But when you start pressuring Manning, is when he messes up. And the thing about Peyton Manning is he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, no doubt.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Oh, yeah.
He can leave tomorrow.
Doubt. He's one of the best quarterbacks of all time.
Yep.
But he's a product of a passing system and a good offensive line.
Yeah.
In Indianapolis, he had a great offensive line with Jeff Saturday as the anchor.
Oh, my, yes.
Now in Denver, he has an offensive line, and he has the receivers that he also had basically in Indianapolis.
Yeah, but he didn't have those. He didn't have those weapons when he first got there, Jimmy. That's the other problem. They didn't have much of a line to speak of when Peyton got there. Plus, he didn't have the weapons that he has today, present day.
Well, he had Marvin Harrison and he had Reggie Wayne. But yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, at the Broncos.
His first year or two in the league,
that was rough.
It was rough for him, but when he got Harrison, when he got Reggie Wayne in there, that's when the aerial started.
I'm thinking even with the Denver Broncos when he first got there, he wasn't really acclimated to that system, and of course, obviously, he greased it up, and he's going to break every record known to man. Meanwhile, let's move on. Who do you pick tonight, Jimmy, in that game between Chargers and Broncos getting underway in about an hour?
San Diego.
And what kind of score you think? What kind of points we asking or giving up?
I'm going to say San Diego 24.
Mm-hmm.
And the Denver Broncos 20.
All right. You know why I like to ask that, Dave? Because I like to listen back on the broadcast and
find out how bad we really
I like
are.
to listen Friday and see how far we were apart. What's your take, Dave? What's your take on the game tonight?
I'm going to go with the Broncos, and I'm going to give them a 35-14 win over San Diego.
All right, we'll see how things work out in an hour when they hit the gridiron. The Chargers take on Broncos tonight in Thursday Night Football. Meanwhile, Thursday Night Sports Talk on the AirNetwork.net. It is Greg Banks in the studio, Dave Shannon in Altoona, Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. Hey, I want to ask you guys, the Steelers defeated the Texans 30-23 on Monday after scoring those 3 times before the half. They go now 4-3 on the season. Coach Tomlin and Le'Veon Bell, by the way, talked about some of the positives that came out of that game as they get set to take on Indy in what is a rather short week.
Considering how banged up the line got with Gilbert's injury and all, you have to be pretty pleased with their play, especially against J.J. Watt.
Yeah, I thought they did a nice job, man. They competed. But that group's kind of grown up together, man. They've been battle-tested here over the last several years. They don't flinch in the face of adversity, whether it's injury within the ranks or whether it's faced with a real opponent like 99. They stick together and they fight, and they did that tonight. It was touchy there for a while when Beach went down there at the quarter change. You're about to see Marquise Pouncey at left tackle.
Talk about your 99, and how good of an angle or view did you have of his interception?
Old 99. We'll give him the week off and see if he can get his body ready to go on a short week. But I appreciate his efforts not only on that play, but throughout the night. And obviously, he provides veteran-savvy leadership and perspective during the course of preparation.
Have you ever seen anything like the final 3 minutes in football and scoring 24 points? And how much momentum did that give you guys?
Yeah, I've never seen anything like that. I mean, I'm just glad to be a part of it. And that definitely, helped us, throughout the rest of the game, because, we scored so many points in such a short span. The defense was causing turnovers. The offense was striking. We capitalized when we had the opportunities today, and that was really the big part today.
Was there any extra motivation on your part, given that Arian Foster was on the other sideline?
Yeah, a little bit, most definitely. I mean, because obviously, I knew he was another one of the great backs in this league, and I definitely knew going head to head with him, definitely gonna get me going a little bit. But he had a tremendous game, and he congratulated me after the game. It was good to meet him, because I was a guy who I used to watch, so it was good that he came to come talk to me after the game, and we caught up and exchanged little numbers and everything. So
Mike Tomlin and Javion Bell, and that was after Le'Veon Bell. I'm sorry, where's Javion come from? Oh my God, these names!
I think you still got Julius on the mind.
I don't know what I have on my mind, but I have two. Hey, listen, guys, I have 2 things in my mind after that game. One was, did you see when Watts was shocked out of his jock that time that Antoine Brown caught the ball and stopped on a dime and then moved to another location? And I believe he left several defenders in his wake on that one. The other one was when in those last minute and a half or 3 minutes before the half, they'd come back and score all those points. What do you guys think about that game on Monday?
They were lucky. They were lucky. You win a game like that. They were on the road to having a similar game that they did against Cleveland the week before.
Yeah.
And the defense created some opportunities, which is kind of what was a Steeler hallmark there when Tomlin first came aboard and in the Bill Cowher area. Takeaway was a big part of the Steelers game, and you heard that a lot.
Yeah.
The defense needed to create some situations, create turnovers, and they had not been doing that, and you can see what happened there in that game as to how quickly a game can change
right,
when your defense is able to do that. Otherwise, I think they're on the road to the same kind of loss they had against Cleveland in that game if they don't get those 21 points in 3 minutes.
Oh, they obviously.
Damnedest thing I ever saw.
Yeah, what about you, Jimmy? What do you think of those 21 points in those last few minutes of that half?
Crazy.
It was crazy. It was
crazy, crazy. But like Dave said, they were lucky.
Yeah.
They were lucky. But the one player I would say who surprised me was Brian, the receiver.
Mm-hmm.
He caught the very first touchdown pass, and in fact, he ran into the wall because he was running so fast.
We'll talk about your boy on the other side of the line, the Mr. Blue. He came out of nowhere for a touchdown.
Blue.
Yes, sir.
You have him on your fantasy team, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Man, I'm telling you.
Whenever Arian Foster went down earlier this season with a back injury, I'm like, well, I needed a backup running back, so I picked up Alfred Blue and never dropped him.
Well, you made a good choice there because he looked impressive. He certainly did. Meanwhile, it's a short week for the Steelers. They get set to take on the Colts on Sunday, and Andrew Luck. This is going to be a whole different ball game. According to
Good luck, Pittsburgh.
Big Ben says, Big Ben says, I admire this guy.
Ben, what can you tell us about the Colts defense?
They're exceptional, very good. They get after it. A lot of Baltimore-esque, if you will, but just a really good, fundamental, tough, physical, nasty defense.
I know you're on the sidelines when he's out there, but Andrew Luck, from what you've seen, what are your thoughts on him?
Oh, he's a great football player. He's emerging as one of the best in the league, and I think a lot of us saw that coming.
You've gone up against some of the great quarterbacks in this league, veterans. How does it feel like going up against maybe one that's going to be a great quarterback?
Well, it's awesome. I always enjoy watching other quarterbacks because anything you can take, whether they're old or younger, and use it in your game, I think you got to do it. But hopefully he has a bad day because our defense is playing well.
Ben, are you surprised what the Colts defense did against the Bengals with their offense? 3 and outs 10 times.
Well, they just speaks for how good their defense is, and that's why it's going to be a tough week, and we have our hands full in preparation.
Mike says he's going to continue to mix and match receivers. Does that make it more difficult on you to get in a rhythm with these guys?
Well, we work every day with all of them, so it's really just about knowing who's out there on a particular play, because each guy may run a route a little different. So as long as I know who's in there as we're going, I'm fine, and I feel confident with whoever's in there that they're going to make the play.
Hey, Dave, do you think that Big Ben is kind of impressed and sort of a reflection of himself when he sees Andrew Luck on the other side of the line there this Sunday?
I'd say definitely. They're kindred spirits to a degree. And there was a stretch there where the Steelers' offense was a little more consistent and reliable. And I'm trying to think of how many seasons ago that would have been, probably about 4, where I never thought they were out of a game. It was just they had that kind of an offense going on, and Ben was the type of guy that could elude tacklers and what have you and make something happen. And Luck is the same kind of guy. And he has had his games where he falls down, but I don't think that'll happen against the Steelers. I just have very little confidence in the Steelers defense, despite what they may have been able to accomplish. In the end, it's Bill O'Brien. I saw a post-game news conference with him after the loss, and he said, we were an onside kick away from sending the game to overtime.
Yeah, they were.
And so, as I say, I really, the Steelers' defense to me is still a problem. I'm surprised they haven't addressed issues better than what they have in the past.
Yeah.
And I think that just goes to show either something needs to happen in the front office. Player development, player personnel has to get a better handle on what to do with this team, or they have to change their philosophy in the way they are going after players.
Yeah, Jimmy, you think the Colts will bring in maybe some major weapons into the game against the Steelers on Sunday?
Major weapons isn't even in the word I'm going to use.
Okay.
They're bringing an arsenal in.
Yeah.
Reggie Rain, Trent Richardson, T.Y. Hilton, just Andrew Luck, who is probably in my opinion, this is my strictly opinion, one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL right now.
Oh, no doubt of you. He's got to be ranked up there. I went into a ranking today, matter of fact, and at the top, obviously, sits this year Aaron Rodgers, and then, of course, Manning, and then it comes, and I saw Lucky in the top 5. So, having said that, as they get ready to take on the Steelers, and the Steelers faithful out there, you better believe that these ain't the Texans. What kind of score you think we're going to see this Sunday?
Oh, boy, Greg. It's going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
Big 40, it's going to be something like 35-10.
Yeah, your thoughts, Dave?
I was going to go 42-10.
42-10, yeah. So it really is. It's not looking good for the Steelers this weekend. Maybe a miracle will occur between now and Sunday afternoon, huh?
What Pittsburgh needs to do, Greg. They signed Harrison, and I'm a James Harrison fan from day one.
Yeah.
But he's older.
We
all see what Brett Kiesel did. He had an interception. Big, But they have a lot of older players on that team, and we've been talking about this since week 1.
Yeah. Their defense is really old. I mean,
you have a player out there. Let's say he was the SEC Defensive Player of the Year last year.
Right.
And Michael Sam. He just got cut from the Cowboys.
Okay.
Bring a player like Michael Sam in, who is speed, who is powerful, to play that third linebacker position next to Worrells, next to Timmons.
And he got cut from the practice squad there in Dallas.
From the practice squad.
I know. So
bring a player in like a Michael Sam.
Well, I don't know if they're going to make I don't know if they're going to make a move like they did with the Jets and the Seattle Seahawks here recently, mid-season. But it would be interesting to see if maybe the Steelers could add maybe one or two more components to their offensive line and perhaps, obviously, the defense. Even, I guess Troy has to admit, man, his timing is off. You know, that was a nice little move probably 5 or 6 years ago, jumping over the line, but it ain't working now. And rhythm is very important. Yeah, rhythm is very important when it comes to, of course, the game. Dave, do you have any idea? You already gave us your score on this game. So the general consensus is it's the Colts on Sunday, I should say, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and hopefully we'll see a miracle in the interim. Meanwhile, we'll keep it here, guys. Thursday Night Sports Talk on the airnetwork.net. Dave Shannon in Altoona, Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. Let's talk about the Penn State Nittany Lions. I got a copy of a transcript from a press conference with James Franklin talking about the Lions as they get to set to host the Ohio State Buckeyes on Saturday in what shall turn out to be a primetime game on ABC at 8 o'clock. And Franklin says, yeah, great, we're going to have a whiteout.
You know, they're young guys that haven't played a whole lot of games. Every game they gain more confidence. They've seen more things with that experience. I think we'll continue to build confidence, and they'll have a chance to continue to be more and more successful each week, each rep, each game. So I think they're in pretty good shape. Yeah, I mean, everybody outside of the building accentuates the negative. No, I know. Inside the building, what we try to do every single week is we show them the good, the bad, and the ugly. So you try to pull plays out from the game. You show them 10 really good plays. You show them 10 plays that we need to improve on, and you show them 10 plays that we need to eliminate, type of deal. Maybe 5 of each or whatever it may be. But it's like I've said to you guys before. We are going to celebrate like crazy when guys do something well. When they do something, that we need to improve on, we're gonna correct that as well. And it's like I told you guys before, I don't want to become a coach, and I don't want our team to become a team or a program that the losses hurt more than the wins. So we're going to prepare like crazy because we all enjoy the wins more. Well, I think from a whiteout perspective and from an enthusiasm perspective, you can't replace the energy that people feel, fans getting caught up in that type of environment, building, continue to build our fan base, get it even stronger, recruiting, our players, everything. You want to be a part of it. I think there's no doubt. All the logistical stuff. That's why we have an administrative staff off the field that really help with those things, because they think the coaches are going to organize that. They're not. They're going to have the conversations with the families and the recruits and the high school coaches to make sure we're all on the same page. But that's where all the the off the field organization goes. That's where hiring a guy like PJ has been really helpful, because he's got institutional knowledge, he's got community knowledge, which is valuable to us.
That's Coach James Franklin of the Penn State Nittany Lions talking about actually his young players at first, and then this weekend's whiteout, which he looks at as a recruiting tool. Dave, he really didn't touch on Ohio State, but how do you see that game working out after they've been off of their second bye week?
I think here's the thing with college football. You don't always, in some cases with some teams you do, but they are younger, and there are things that happen over the course of a week in preparation that can change the outcome of the game. And they are still, we call them young men, but to a degree they're still kids. And anything can happen in college football. Outside of the powerhouse teams, your top 4 teams in college football, outside of them, anything can happen. Penn State could pull off a win and feed off of their crowd and actually do well there. I think on paper you look at it and you have to say that Ohio State walks away with a win. And there's a part of that, too. You look at it, and one of the things we've been talking about since week 1 here on the show is that they do not have the offensive line that they really need for 2 things: protection for Christian Hackenberg and the ability to run the football. Christian can be the best quarterback there is.
Yeah.
And, by the way, Pascal Dupuis has put the Penguins up 1-0 against the Detroit Red Wings.
Oh, great.
We'll get to that in a little bit. But Hackenberg, I feel for him. It's the kind of thing where they look like they're big guys. I don't think Penn State shorted themselves on size when it comes to their offensive line. It's just they don't seem to have that speed. One of the most impressive things that I've seen over the years is the size of some of the men in the NFL and some of the young men in college football and how quick they really are. I think Jimmy would agree with that.
Yeah, Jimmy, Franklin went on to say that obviously the Buckeyes, one of the most athletic teams that the Lions will face this season to date. Of course, enters the week on a 4-game winning streak, which includes Big Ten victories over Maryland and Rutgers. And I almost forgot Maryland is now in the Big Ten. But, their quarterback, J.T. Barrett, this guy has some size. He's got quickness. He's thrown 17 touchdowns and just 1 interception during those last 4 games. How do you see this game panning out for the Nittany Lions between Ohio State and the Nits?
I see, I remember earlier in this season, I was saying how J.T. Barrett is going to lose a lot of games for Ohio State, and I was wrong with that.
Yeah.
But he's shocking me. This kid is shocking me. He's taking over for Braxton Miller, and he's basically doing just as well as Braxton Miller would do. On the Penn State side, their offensive line is what concerns me. Yeah, 2 guys blocking each other in Northwestern.
Yeah, I remember seeing that.
They're very young.
Mm-hmm.
The Ohio State defense is a veteran group. They're made up of seniors and juniors on that team.
Well, let's face it, they have the advantage on both sides of the line this week. Joey Bose is a defensive end that weighs 280 pounds and is 6'5", and he's quick on top of everything.
Yeah, so I just look at Penn State not doing too well, even though it's a home game in Beaver Stadium, the whiteout.
That's the advantage. Yeah,
that's the one advantage. College game day, ESPN game day is going to be there. They're going to pump up the crowd.
Right.
But I still say Ohio State's going to come in, not care it's a whiteout, and just beat Penn State.
Give me a score, Dave, on this game today on Saturday, 8 o'clock on ABC TV between Ohio State and Penn State.
I'm going to say it's a heartbreaker. This is going to go against conventional wisdom, but I'm going to say it's a heartbreaker for Penn State, and they lose the game 28-21.
All right, Jimmy, your thoughts on that?
Like Dave said, a heartbreaker, but my score is going to be 21-17, Ohio State.
All right. That's coming up on Saturday, by the way, on ABC at 8 o'clock. Ohio State taking on Penn State at home. It's a whiteout. Over 107,000 screaming crazy fans will be in the stadium that night. And guess what? We'll be like West Virginia. Penn State wins. We're burning couches on Saturday night. Right on. Hey, Dave, we're going to be burning couches right there in the Beaver Canyon.
Beaver Canyon, yeah. It'll be, I'll tell you what, if they get away with a win on that, there may be, I hope they're prepared, and I'm sure they are. They have come to realize what certain games mean and, the type of crowd that'll be in town, the size of the crowd that'll be there. And they're ready for it.
Hey, Jimmy,
that's
more people than you have in Johnstown. 107,000 people stuffed into that stadium, man. You know what I mean? Hey, here's another game of note, by the way. Pitt, by the way, getting ready to host Georgia Tech. Now, that's a critical ACC Coastal Division encounter. That's coming up at 3:30 p.m. at Heinz Field, and that'll be, I understand, on ESPN. And give me some thoughts on this as I give you the storyline on this game coming up. These two teams, by the way, are tied for first place in the ACC Coastal Division. Pitt hosts Georgia Tech in yet another critical conference game. They're looking to build momentum following last week's nationally televised 21-16 win over Virginia Tech. You think that'll help them this week with that momentum after beating the Hokies, Jimmy?
I think it will because Virginia Tech's one of the powerhouse teams everybody talks about every single year. Virginia Tech this, Virginia Tech that, and for Pitt to come in and beat them, I think is a momentum builder to go against Georgia Tech to keep that first place in the Coastal Division. So I look at it as Tyler Boyd, James Carter, Chad Wojtek. They're just going to win against Georgia Tech. I don't see no contest.
Hey, by the way, Connor leads the nation eighth. Actually, he's number 8 nationally in total rushing with 959 yards. He needs only 41 yards to become the 13th player to rush for 1,000 yards at Pitt, and he would be the only 7th sophomore to accomplish the feat. Dave, you think behind the running of Peratt, Connors, they could maybe have some success this week against Georgia Tech?
Yeah, and I think being at Heinz Field is going to be a bit of a turning point. I always get a little bit disappointed. I've always, maybe more of a Pitt fan since the rivalry against Penn State went away. But the one thing that I will say about it is I feel disappointed when I look at how many empty seats there are at Heinz Field.
Oh, yeah.
In big games for the Pitt Panthers. Hopefully they show up and really come out to support the Panthers. And I think to that end, Heinz Field can provide an advantage for them. The other advantage, weather at Heinz Field can just change things. I mean, if you're relying on your kicking game much at all, Heinz Field can be a difference maker. I don't know what the forecast is for Saturday.
Yeah, I don't have that either. It shouldn't be that bad, though. I think in our region we're expecting temperatures about 68. So if that's the case in Pittsburgh,
it's about the wind, though.
Yeah,
it's about the wind, Greg.
Yeah,
that's the biggest factor at this time
in
of the year.
In the open end of the end zone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, that is. You ask the NFL kickers and even the Steelers' own kickers over the course of time. What an absolute nightmare it is to kick at Heinz Field.
Jimmy, what's your prediction on the game, Georgia Tech versus Pitt this Saturday?
I would say let's go with 35 Pitt, 21 Georgia Tech.
And you, Dave, what's your prediction on the game?
I'm going to go with somewhere around a 28-17 victory. I'll give the Panthers an edge there and give them a 28-17 win.
All right, that's Pitt against Georgia Tech. That's at 3:30 at Heinz Field coming up on Saturday. If you can't make it to the game, check out ESPNU. That's where you'll find it on television. Meanwhile, since Chad State's not with us tonight on Thursday Night Sports Talk with Dave Shannon in Altoona, Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown, and yours truly in the studio, I just went in, got a little information on the Huntington Bearcats, who handily defeated Phillipsburg last Friday, 42-13, to knot their season record now at 4-4. Now, the Bearcats will be home tomorrow night to face the Central Scarlet Dragons, who will come into War Vets Field on senior night with a record. That's right, with a record of 6-2. But you know what? There's still help for the Bearcats because they're still in the running for a postseason spot in District 6 playoffs. Right now, sitting at number 5, number 6. Even if they get to number 8, they still have Juniata Valley as their final opponent next Friday night. So that means they probably will get a sniff of the playoffs in the first round in District 6 since they take 8 teams. So the best of luck to Coach Mike Hootie, his staff, and the Huntington Bearcats as they get set to take on the Scarlet Dragons of Central. That's tomorrow night in Huntington on senior night. Dave, I got to talk to you a minute about this next thing. The display of camaraderie last night at the arena in Pittsburgh as the Penguins and the Flyers got set to play. Normally they sing the national anthem, but in addition to that last night, they sang "O Canada" in tribute to the Canada situation where there was a shooting at the Parliament building in Ottawa, the capital of Canada. The Ottawa Senators' home game, by the way, was postponed in the wake of that shooting. And to pay
which
tribute,
was a very good idea.
Yeah, it's a very good idea. But in order to pay tribute to those in Ottawa on that tragic day, the Canadian national anthem was performed in Pittsburgh last night before the Flyers-Penguins game. It's typically a song only sung in Canada, by the way, or if a Canadian team is playing. But fans inside the Consol Energy Center joined in as 2 maple leaves were projected onto the ice, and they sang that. I mean, that's got to be a display of honor. It's certainly a display of class. What's your thoughts on that, and also that Flyers-Penguins game last night?
Well, any time that free countries can band together in any way, shape, or form, whether it be through the sports arena or in any other way, it's a good thing for the world that you can get together and do that. So, in the end, does it physically do anything? No, but I'll tell you what, for the mindset, and terrorists will tell you that the purpose of that is to strike terror into the hearts of people. And when they can join hands together and be together, that's a big plus and good for the freedom side of things. So that it was well done, well deserved type of thing to take that opportunity to duo Canada and show that we're here and we support the Canadians. The Canadians have always done whatever they can to support us. So they good for them. On the game side of it,
Flyers won that game 5-3. By the way, what's your impressions on that? Did they turn the puck over too much or what?
Well, a little bit of it. Marc-Andre Fleury had looked really good, and he's not in net tonight, and it's not because of the game he had last night. It's because it's a back-to-back night situation, and Thomas Greiss needs to get out there, and he is out there tonight, and so far looking pretty good against the Detroit Red Wings. I think I just saw some things that were it was one of those bad Marc-Andre Fleury games. There were some goals got in that weren't that good. I still think even though they were 3-1 going into that game, I think there was a bit of the still you can see them, the older players still getting used to the system that the new coach has in. And I think I think maybe about a month from now or maybe middle of November, then we're going to see a little bit more of what this team will be for the remainder of the season. But at this particular point, I do see times, and I think it's had, the one player it seems to have had, and I'm not sure, I wanted to research this, and I did not get the opportunity to do it, was to see if there's anything physically wrong with Yevgeny Malkin. Because there's something that's not right with him. Now, it could just be that he's having trouble adjusting to the new system that's in place from Coach Johnson. And so we'll see how that plays out over the course of time. But they need him to perform if they are going to go anywhere. You have to have two lines that are capable of putting the puck in a moment's notice. And that's certainly a big one, is to have that line producing, which thus far, from the Malkin side of things, he's just not been able to do. He doesn't look sharp. He has moments in a game, but he's not going, start to finish and having a really complete game right now.
Yeah, I'm seeing a name emerge that I am not familiar with at all. Nick Spaulding, who apparently had a complete game last night. And he plays. Hey, Jimmy, you think this guy plays pretty physical and makes a difference when he plays on the ice for the Penguins?
Spaulding? Yeah, I think he does. He's a fresh face for them, young kid.
Mm-hmm.
And with that first goal, I was shocked he even made it.
Okay.
I was like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Never heard of him before, but I think he makes a difference. Just watching him last night, his energy on the ice.
What about
as Dave was saying about Malkin?
Yeah.
Malkin, like Dave said, he doesn't look like the Malkin last year that he was. Because last year's Malkin would have made two of them goals that were right in front of the net.
Right.
You know? Mm-hmm. So he doesn't look like the same Malkin. So you need more energy out there, and that Spaulding's giving it to them.
Well, we got about a minute left on Thursday Night Sports Talk. Dave Shannon, Altoona, Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. Execution-wise, Dave, or a score update. Do you have an update for us?
Yeah, Ole Mata has just put the Penguins up by a score of 2-0. Ole Mata in deep against Jimmy Howard, right in the 5-hole, dribbled one right between the legs.
So the Pens are now up 2-0 against the Red Wings as they take on the Red Wings in the NHL on this Thursday night. Hey, I want to thank you guys for being a part of Thursday Night Sports Talk on the Air Network. Dave Shannon, Altoona, thank you, Dave.
Thank you, Greg.
And Jimmy Tighe in Johnstown. Jimmy, thank you as well for joining us for the entire show tonight.
No problem, Greg. Anytime.
All right, guys, have a great weekend. By the way, Chad States will return next week. And if you missed us live tonight on the airnetwork.net, check us out at 4 p.m. as we rebroadcast tomorrow at 4 p.m. Have a great weekend, everybody. Go Penn State, go Pitt, go Penguins. So long.